And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Chag Sameach, everyone. We're here on the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and we have had a wonderful time. Amen. And it's been a joy, and we've been basking in the blessings of Yahweh and in Yahweh's command to celebrate the bounty of His blessings and to remember that He caused us to dwell in booths when He brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim. Amen. Turn with me to Leviticus 23. Vayikra 23. We'll take a look at that. And we're going to be on verse 39 is where we're going to start on page 130. And it says, On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather in the fruit of the land, observe the festival of Yahweh for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palms, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the streams, and shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days. And you shall observe it as a festival to Yahweh for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Observe it in the 7th month. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All you who are native Israelites, dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Now, tomorrow we'll break camp and go back to the grind of our regular lives. Boo. But when we go back to our regular lives, we are living those lives to Yahweh. Amen. Amen. Which is the thing that brought us here in the first place. Amen. Yay. Yeah. When we go back, we will go back into the world. And that's when we will be met with challenges and attacks that we do not have to deal with so much while in the camp of Yahweh. Amen? All right. Well, rather than just go back with our guard down, I thought it might be an appropriate time to talk about getting our guard up. What do you think? Yeah. Also, what have the children been learning about this week? The armor of Elohim, right? And we just got blessed to see them in their costumes, and those were pretty tough costumes. I mean, and it cracked me up. Tyner kept wanting to pull it down over his eyes for the picture, you know, and so we got one with it over his eyes. But maybe we need to talk about that too before we go. Have you ever noticed how much the Shema correlates to Ephesians chapter 6, where Paul talks about putting on the complete armor of Elohim? It's an interesting little study, and the name of the message today is called Shema, and put on the armor. This armor and the battles for which we are putting it on is something that I kind of like to liken to Star Wars. Yeah, right? Why? Because due to the war that's going on between the light side, all right, which is the side that Yahweh and Yeshua is on, okay, who referred to himself in Revelation 22 as the bright and morning star. All right, let's look at that real quick. Revelation 22 and verse 16, just one verse. Revelation 22. And it says in verse 16 on page 1210, I, Yahshua, have sent my messengers to witness to you these matters in the assemblies. I am the root and the offspring of Dawid, the bright and morning star. And then one other thing in John chapter 8. John chapter 8. Big John. Page 1028 on verse 12. John 8:12. Therefore, Yahshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but possess the light of life. And the dark side, which is who? The devil and the stars that fell with him. That's why they call it Star Wars. All right. Now, we're going to start looking at Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to read here about the armor of Elohim. Did you know that Paul is not the first person to talk about different parts of the armor of Elohim? Ephesians chapter 6. And we're going to start reading in verse 10. I've had to be ambidextrous this week and drink with my right hand instead of my left hand. It's not keeping me down, though. My lightsaber hand. Hey, do you know what this is right here? This is your lightsaber. We'll see that in a minute. Amen? That's your lightsaber. Verse 10. For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the Master and in the mightiness of His strength. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have the power to stand against the schemes of who? The devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness, there it is, of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth. They had truth around their waist a while ago when the little ones sang, didn't they? And having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set-apart ones. Right? Did you notice that Paul said to put on the complete armor of Elohim? See, it's not good enough to only put on part. One of the things that I think is interesting, he says, above all, having taken up the shield of belief. Gave a message once upon a time where it's called Swashbucklers of Elohim. And we talked about being swashbucklers for Yahweh. A buckler is one of these big curved shields like this that are about 4 feet tall that covers nearly the whole body, and that's what we need to cover ourselves with when we talk about covering ourselves with the shield of belief. Amen? Be completely covered. But you see, it's not good to put on only part of it, and there are many who only put on part of the armor. There are those who will pick up the sword of the Spirit and try to cut you down to size. Okay? Little slicing one-liners, and things like that. You've had some of that going on lately, hadn't you, Dan? Yeah. Did you know who else will do that? Hasatan will do that. All right? We've got him on record as doing that. Let's take a look about it. Matthew chapter 4. We're going to start reading in verse 1. But if you think about it, Yahshua and Satan had a lightsaber battle. Because they're both trying to use the sword of the Spirit, right? Matthew chapter 4. We're going to start in verse 1. Then Yeshua was led up by the Spirit. This is right after his immersion, by the way. Yeshua was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. And after having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the trier came and said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, command these stones to become bread. But he answering said, It has been written. Who's saying that? Yeshua. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Then the devil took him up into the set-apart city, set him on the edge of the set-apart place, and said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, throw yourself down, for it has been written, He shall command His messengers concerning you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, so that you do not dash your foot against a stone. And Yeshua said to him, It has also been written, You shall not try Yahweh your Elohim. Now from Yeshua's example right here, we need to be ready to give an account anytime someone gives us a false passage like that, or something to tempt us with, to try us to go again. See, he was trying to get Yeshua to commit suicide. Okay? We've got to be ready to fight back. Verse 8, Again the devil took him up on a very high mountain and showed him all the reigns of the world and their esteem, and said to him, All these I shall give you if you fall down and worship me. And then Yeshua said to him, Go, Satan, for it has been written. See, that's what he does every time. For it has been written, You shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and Him alone you shall serve. And then what happened? The devil left him. Now, that's a lesson that we can learn there, brothers and sisters. And the messengers came and attended him. But see, Hasatan did not have the full armor. Only what? The sword. He's cutting at Yeshua with the sword. His followers will walk up to you and try to stick you in the eye with it. Anybody ever had that happen? Yep. Others have the shield of belief. But belief alone is not enough. How many of us that came out of a walk that said, all you got to do is believe. All you got to do is believe. You can't do anything. He's done it all for you. Okay? Well, when he was asked, what must I do to enter into everlasting life? He said, keep the commands. Yeah. Now, if he's telling me to keep the commands, sounds to me like he didn't do that part for me. Amen? You know, if he did it all, why would he tell me to keep the commands, or anybody else for that matter, when asked, what must I do for everlasting life? Okay? Now, this last fellow that he was battling with, do you know why he was cast out of heaven? Because he's a rebel. All right? Because he's a rebel. And I just don't believe that Yahweh wants to deal with that rebellion thing again up there in the reign of Elohim. Amen? All right, so we must have all of the armor to stand against the schemes of the devil. And what we just read was a scheme of the devil. But I want you to know that he is a powerful adversary, and he is going to work schemes in your life, in my life, to try to get us to transgress the commands of Elohim, or to do things to ruin our lives where we don't feel like we're worthy. There are all kinds of people who can't come to Elohim in their minds because they think that they have transgressed so badly, they've fallen so far. But we read in Ezekiel 18, in the day that one turns from their unrighteousness so that they walk righteously, all of their unrighteousness that they had worked will be remembered against them no more. Right? So no, wherever we've sunk, Yahweh can lift us up. We're going to see that in a minute too, I think. Ephesians chapter 6. Now put you a little bookmark in there because we're going to be going back and forth. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 is where we're going to get started. Do I have a bookmark? Yeah. Got this little thing right here. Okay. Verse 10. For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the Master and the mightiness of His strength. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have the power to withstand in the wicked day. And having done all, to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist. Now, most translations translate this word loins, right? Having girded your waist or your loins with, what's that next word? Truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Now, loins is an idiom for what? Your offspring, your children, all right? Your children. Example, that 2 Chronicles chapter 6. Second Chronicles chapter 6, verse 8. Don't lose your place in Ephesians because we're going to be turning back and forth. 2 Chronicles 6, verse 8. Everybody there? But Yahweh said to my father David, because it was in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well in that it was in your heart. But you do not build the house for your son who comes forth from your what? Your loins. He does build the house for my name. Okay? So that's important. Let's remember that. All right, Ephesians 6:15 says, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. All right? Feet and good news. Let's look to Isaiah 52. Isaiah 52. Going to be on page 455. We're going to start reading in verse 6. Isaiah 52, verse 6. Therefore my people shall know my name in that day, for I am the one who is speaking. See, it is I. How pleasant upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings what? Good news. Who proclaims what? Peace. Who brings good news. Who proclaims deliverance. Who says to Zion, your Elohim reigns, the voice of your watchmen. They shall lift up their voices together. They shout for joy, because eye to eye they see the return of Yahweh to Zion. Break forth into joy and sing together, you waste places of Jerusalem. For Yahweh shall comfort His people. He shall redeem Jerusalem. So we see the good news, the feet of Him who brings good news. All right, Ephesians 6:16. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one, take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times, with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set apart ones. Now, I want to show you something, but before I get there, are we praying at all times? Oh, don't get me wrong. I know when we're trying to change lanes in traffic, we need to be watching the mirrors and all that. Is our prayer life maybe suffering a little where we are not in supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance for each other and for ourselves. You'll have to answer that for yourself. Most likely, as Matt was talking about the other day, the answer is we could be doing better. You know? All right, now, watch this. Turn with me to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now, what are we going to see when we get to Deuteronomy 6? The Shema. Deuteronomy 6, we're going to start reading in verse 4. You know, I was really glad that the kids came out and sang that song today, because it ought to have some of what we're about to look at in here already. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. Okay, that's your everything, right? All right. Now, I want you to remember what Paul said in Ephesians 6. Above all, you remember what above all is, Ashley? Above all is what? Having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Right? That shield of belief covers your everything. Your heart, your being, and all your might. Right? Let's keep going. To quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Verse 6. And these words which I am commanding you shall be in what? In your heart. What do you cover with a breastplate? Having put on the breastplate of righteousness. And these words which I am commanding you shall be in your heart. And put on the breastplate of righteousness. What is righteousness? The word of Elohim. And it's righteousness to us when we guard to do what? Keep all His commands. And these words which I am commanding you shall be in your heart, having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Verse 7. And you shall impress them upon your children, like we were doing today, having girded your loins with truth. Isn't that interesting? Having guarded your loins with truth. Now, these children that have come forth from our loins are being guarded in truth. Amen. That seems to be a little variation on this theme. And let's see, verse 7. And shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way. Now, what do you do with when you walk? What do you use? You use your feet, having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. And when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand. Do you know what? Well, I'll ask this first of all. Do you know what part of your body you see more than any other part of your body? Your hands are always in front of you doing something. And they're almost always in your field of vision. But do you know what swordsmen would do with their weapon before they went into battle? The Crusaders and so forth, they would take heavy pieces of leather and they would bind those swords to their hands so that what? So they didn't lose them in heavy battle. So they didn't get knocked out of their hands. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand. And Paul said, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. Listen, you need to have that as a sign on your hand, bound on your hand, so that when you go into battle, Yahshua didn't get knocked out of his hand, amen. He fed it right back to the old devil, and he left him. All right? And when you let's see, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and take also the helmet of deliverance. Has anybody ever seen one of the helmets that they would use back during the Middle Ages? And not even then when they would use leather helmets. They would come down between their eyes and protect their head. taking also the helmet of deliverance, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now skip down to verse 24. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh, our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive, as it is today. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh, our Elohim, as He has commanded us. Now I want to talk for just a minute about the schemes of the devil. Does everybody here know what WMDs are? What are weapons of mass destruction? Is that right? Well, that is true, but Satan also uses weapons of mass deception. All right? Weapons of mass deception that he'll scatter, which creates destruction. All right, which creates destruction. How does he do that? He does that by false doctrine. He does that by causing slanderings and whisperings, so that people are talking about one another and they get their feelings hurt. You know, lies. He does it by people spreading lies. You can pretty much, Yahshua said the second great command is to love your neighbor as yourself. If you look at all the things in there where someone can transgress against their neighbor, Hasatan is busy using those things to cause harm rather than bring good. And also, lies, like Matt says, he'll use them to teach people the incorrect things about Elohim. All right? That goes to the false doctrine. All right. John chapter 8. I'm going to read one verse here. I'm going to read verse 44. John 8, verse 44. Yahshua said, "You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you wish to do, for he was a murderer from the beginning and has not stood in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." All right? So we're dealing with a deceptive person here, or a deceptive personality. All right? One more, Revelation chapter 12. Page 1201. Verse 44. I'm sorry, verse 9. Revelation 12:9. "The great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who leads the whole world astray." That's a whole lot of deception right there, brothers and sisters. Leads the whole world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. We've got to watch out for this guy and his minions. And his minions aren't little yellow fellas. Okay? His minions may come up to you as a person on YouTube, and something that you pick up in a tract that you read. It may be something whispering in your ear, telling you to do the wrong thing, tempting you to do the wrong thing. Did you know that keeping the law is easy? It says it's not too hard. It says it's not too hard for you. And if it is, Yahweh's a liar. And it says he's not a liar. Okay? What gives us trouble is this flesh. That selfishness and self-centeredness that I mentioned on the first day of the feast. All right? That's what gets us into trouble. When we do like Hawa and rather do what we were created to do, seek our own desires, our own passions, and Satan comes along and says, "Is it really true? Is it really true That's just all unfair. Got to watch out for his minions. All right. Ephesians 6, verse 11. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matterness of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Right. Now, one of the things that Hasatan hates are the assemblies of Yahshua. I'm just here to tell you. He hates this one. I hope he does. What about you? Do you hope Satan hates this assembly? I do. I hope he hates this assembly. I don't want him coming in here. I listened to a guy one time. He said, "I hope Satan and all his demons come through that door." I slid down. I slid down in the chair I was in because I want them to go over my head. You know, I don't want them here. I want them outside the hedge. I want Yahweh walking in this camp. All right. But I'm glad that Satan hates this congregation. I pray for this congregation every week. All right. He would love to tear the assemblies, the congregations, the house groups, whoever it is who are believers in Yahshua and Torah keepers apart, and our group is no different. It isn't. All right? He's not concerned with those who have fallen to their own lusts. You know, they're not an obstacle against his agenda. I think you used that term the other night about somebody else. That's not an obstacle against their agenda. That's not an obstacle against his agenda. Matter of fact, they kind of make it easy for him. They're the ones out here selling babies' body parts and stuff. All right? The Torah keepers, on the other hand, are on the other hand. Hallelujah. And he would love to destroy this group or any other. Now, James warns us about this very thing. I'd like to turn there to James chapter 4. We're going to start reading in verse 1. We're on page 1176. Or somewhere nearby, depending on what version. James 4, verse 1. Where do fightings and strivings come from among you? Just sit there and think about that for a minute. Where do fightings and strivings come from among you? Do they not come from your pleasures that battle in your members? Is that not what I was talking about a while ago? This. All right. You desire. Oh, there's that word that got used with Hawa. You desire and do not have. You murder and are jealous and are unable to obtain. You strive and fight. You do not possess because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask evilly in order to spend it on your pleasures. Adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim? Whoever therefore intends to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. Or do you think that the Scriptures speak to no purpose? Does the Spirit which dwells in us intensely crave unto envy? But he gives greater favor. Because of this, he says, Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. So then, subject yourselves to Elohim. Resist who? The devil, and he shall flee from you. Listen, resistance doesn't necessarily always come easy. It's not always something that's just a little thing, you know, like an annoyance. Sometimes it's a hard attack. We must resist depending on how, you know, we must meet the attack with the resistance. Okay? Right? Resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. Verse 8. Draw near to Elohim, and he shall draw near to you. Cleanse hands, sinners, and cleanse the hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to dejection. Humble yourself in the sight of the Master, and he shall lift you up. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right? So, we should be very much on guard against the schemes of the devil, ready to repel them at any time. Amen? All right? Now, guard yourself when you're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. If you'll remember that acronym, HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. You know, that's one of the reasons why I said we got a test today, because there's a lot of people who are tired. You know, it's easy to start getting annoyed and then get angry. We ain't been hungry. Hadn't been hungry, all right? But and we haven't been lonely for fellowship here, but you might be lonely for family members or whatnot that you know are missing. All right? But he loves the sneak attack and the sucker punch. All right? And he'll use them both. And he'll just come and get you. All right? So, as I said in the message on the first day of the feast, make it hard for the devil. All right? Make it hard for the devil. And Shema, and put on the complete armor of Elohim. Yevrekeka Yahweh va'ish mareka ya'er Yahweh panavaleka bikaneka. Yasa Yahweh panavaleka bi'asem lakash shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you his complete contentment.